Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive into current affairs?
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got a lot to unpack today, from clean energy initiatives to the world of turmeric, and even a bit about watershed development.
It's going to be a fascinating look at how these things connect to the bigger picture and what they mean for all you aspiring policymakers out there.
So let's start with the government's push for clean energy. You've probably heard of the PM-Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, this scheme is getting a lot of attention. It's all about getting more homes running on rooftop solar. And there are two main ways they're doing this, the RESCO model and the ULA model.
Could you break those down for us a bit?
Sure, so with the RESCO model, a private company handles everything. They set up the solar plant, manage it, and you just buy the electricity from them. It's kind of like a hands-off approach.
So what about the ULA model? How is that different?
With ULA, it's the discoms or government entities that handle the installation, so there's a bit more government involvement there.
So there are definitely some strategic considerations when choosing between those two models.
Absolutely. It's not just about going solar, it's about understanding the different approaches and their implications. That's crucial for policy analysis.
Couldn't agree more.
Hmm.
Now, besides solar for homes, India is also making some serious progress with hydrogen-powered trains. They've even developed what they're calling the world's most powerful hydrogen train engine.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. It's not just a technological achievement, it's a strategic move towards diversifying India's energy sources, especially in transportation.
So we're talking about moving away from fossil fuels and embracing cleaner alternatives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it aligns with global trends in sustainable transportation. This could be a big step towards achieving India's climate goals and boosting its position as a leader in green technology.
But what about the different types of hydrogen fuel? We hear about blue hydrogen,
Right.
hydrogen, green hydrogen, even pink hydrogen. How does all that fit in?
That's a really important question. While some types of hydrogen, like blue and gray, are derived from natural gas and still have a carbon footprint, the focus should be on green hydrogen. That's the one that's produced using renewable energy.
And that aligns perfectly with India's National Green Hydrogen Mission.
Right, absolutely. The choice of hydrogen source for this train will be a clear signal of the government's commitment to truly clean transportation.
So it's not just about the train itself. It's about the larger energy strategy it represents.
Oh.
Okay, let's move on to something a little different, turmeric.
Turmeric.
You heard right. India just launched a National Turmeric Board headquartered in Telangana.
Wow, that's interesting. India already leads the global turmeric market. This board seems like a way to really solidify that position.
It's all about boosting production, increasing exports, and promoting the health benefits of turmeric on a global scale.
It's a great example of how a nation can leverage its traditional knowledge and resources for economic growth.
Definitely something to think about for those interested in agricultural policy and international trade.
Now let's switch gears to sustainable land management. The government has approved 56 new watershed development projects under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, PMKSY. This is about more than just dams and canals. It's a more holistic approach to water management. It's about involving the community using biological methods for conservation and diversifying crops.
So it sounds like they're moving away from the traditional top-down approach to water management.
Exactly. They're really emphasizing community participation and empowering local communities to manage their own resources sustainably.
That's a pretty significant shift.
Yeah.
And how does this all tie into the bigger picture of the UPSC exam?
Well, think about it. You're not just studying a scheme, you're analyzing a change in how the government approaches development and governance. It reflects a global trend towards sustainable development and more participatory governance.
So understanding these shifts is crucial for anyone looking to crack the UPSC. It's about connecting those current events to the broader themes and trends in governance and policy.
Precisely. And to add to that, these watershed development projects are also integrating technology in a big way. Things like remote sensing, GIS mapping, and data analytics are being used for planning, monitoring, and evaluation.
So technology is becoming more and more important in this sector.
Absolutely. It's a trend that's only going to become more prominent in the future, and something that's likely to be a focus in upcoming UPSC exams.
That's a great point. So you're not just learning about watershed development, you're also understanding how technology is transforming this sector.
Exactly. It's about connecting those dots and seeing how different aspects of governance and development are all intertwined.
That's what makes this deep dive so valuable. It's about going beyond the surface and really understanding the connections between different sectors and policy areas.
And that's exactly the kind of thinking that will help you succeed in the UPSC exam and beyond.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this first segment, from clean energy to turmeric to sustainable land management. But there's still plenty more to come.
We'll be back with more exciting updates and insights in our next segment, so stay tuned. All right, let's keep things rolling with some rapid-fire insights on some other important happenings that are sure to be on your radar. First up, home voting is expanding. They're making it easier for senior citizens and people with disabilities to participate in elections.
Yeah, this was first tried out during the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, and it seems like it's catching on. So what are the implications here, especially for a country as diverse as India?
It's a great example of how policies evolve to meet societal needs. There's a growing focus on inclusivity and making sure everyone can participate in the electoral process. But of course, it also raises some interesting questions.
Like what?
Well, think about the logistics. Is the security ensuring fairness in a country with varying levels of infrastructure and digital literacy? How would this work in remote areas or among people who might not have easy access to technology?
These are the kinds of questions that really get you thinking. And they're the kinds of questions that could pop up on the UPSC exam. It's about connecting those micro-level details to the macro-level policy implications.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears to a pretty big milestone. The India Meteorological Department, or IMD, is celebrating 150 years.
Wow, 150 years. That's quite a legacy.
It really highlights the importance of weather forecasting and climate science, especially for a country like India that relies so heavily on the monsoon. And they're not resting on their laurels. They've got a new initiative called Mission Mausam.
I was reading about that. It seems pretty ambitious. So what are the key takeaways for UPSC aspirants when it comes to Mission Mausam?
It's not just about the technical stuff like setting up radars and satellites. It's about understanding the bigger picture. Mission Mausam is all about boosting India's capabilities in weather prediction and climate modeling. And that has implications for everything from disaster management to agriculture to water resource planning, even national security.
National security. How so?
Well, think about it. Accurate weather predictions can be crucial for planning military operations or responding to natural disasters. It's all connected.
That's a great example of how seemingly different areas can actually be closely intertwined. And it's a key skill that the UPSC exam tests the ability to see those connections. Okay, next up we have India developing a cutting-edge micromissile system called Bhargavastra.
This is all about countering those emerging threats, especially in the world of drone warfare.
So Bhargavastra is specifically designed to take down drone swarms.
That's right. Drone swarms pose a unique challenge because they can be so agile and can coordinate attacks. So this development shows that India is taking a proactive approach to these new kinds of threats.
And how does this fit into the larger picture of India's national security strategy?
Well, it reflects the changing nature of warfare, the rise of these asymmetric threats, and the growing use of technology in combat. Bhargavastra is a sign that India is committed to developing its own defense technologies.
It's definitely a sign of the times. And it raises some interesting questions about the ethics of autonomous weapon systems and the potential for escalation in future conflicts.
Absolutely. Those are the kinds of nuanced discussions that can really set you apart as a thoughtful and well-informed candidate. Okay, let's shift gears to international affairs. Remember the Diego Garcia issue?
Ah, yes, the ongoing saga.
Well, the recent detention of Indian fishermen near Diego Garcia just highlights how complex this territorial dispute really is.
It's a situation with a lot of history, a lot of politics, and a lot of strategic implications.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that could come up on the UPSC exam.
For sure. So here are some key things to keep in mind. First, understand the historical context. How did the island become a U.S. military base? Why is it still a point of contention?
Right. It's not just about what's happening now. It's about how we got here.
Exactly. Then you need to analyze the geopolitical implications, especially with the rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific region.
And of course, there are the legal arguments and international conventions that come into play as well.
It's about weaving all those threads together to get a full understanding of the issue and its significance.
Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. Lakhs of devotees recently took part in the Gangasagar Mela. It's a major religious festival in West Bengal.
Even events like this that might seem purely cultural can be analyzed from different perspectives.
Such as?
Think about the socio-cultural dynamics, the economic impact of these large gatherings, the logistical challenges of managing the crowds and ensuring safety.
It's a good reminder that even cultural events can have ripple effects across different areas, from society and the economy to administration.
Now let's dive into a groundbreaking development in the field of mining. Scientists have come up with a more eco-friendly method for extracting rare earth elements.
This is interesting because rare earth elements are essential for so many modern technologies.
Right, from smartphones to electric vehicles.
Right.
But traditional mining methods can be really harmful to the environment. So this new method offers a more sustainable way to get those elements.
I was reading about this new method, electrokinetic mining. Pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So what are the main takeaways here for UPSC aspirants?
Think about the potential impact on India's strategic autonomy. Right now, China dominates the global market for rare earth elements, and that creates some potential vulnerabilities for other countries.
Because they rely on China for those crucial materials.
Exactly. So if India can develop a cleaner and more efficient way to mine these elements, it could become a major player in the global market. And that would reduce its dependence on imports.
It's a great example of how technological advancements can have far-reaching geopolitical and economic consequences. Okay, let's talk about international collaborations. India and Spain have decided to celebrate 2026 as a dual year.
It's going to be a year-long celebration of culture, tourism, and artificial intelligence.
Sounds exciting. But beyond the festivities, these kinds of initiatives often lead to some pretty concrete outcomes.
Exactly. You often see increased cultural exchange, economic partnerships, and technological collaborations.
So it's important to pay attention to the specific areas of focus, like artificial intelligence in this case, and think about how India can use these partnerships to advance its own capabilities and interests.
It's all about understanding the strategic intent behind these collaborations. Okay, let's turn our attention to the wildfires that have been raging in the USA. We talked about hydroclimate whiplash earlier. It's a term that's becoming more and more relevant in the context of climate change.
Could you remind us what that means again?
Sure, hydroclimate whiplash refers to those sudden and drastic shifts between extremely wet and extremely dry conditions. It's like the climate is on a seesaw.
And these shifts can be really disruptive.
Right, absolutely.
They can mess with ecosystems, intensify wildfires, and lead to all sorts of challenges. It's one of the ways that climate change is making weather patterns more extreme and unpredictable.
So it's not just about rising temperatures. It's about these complex and interconnected impacts that are getting harder and harder to predict and manage. Exactly. And for those of you preparing for the UPSC exam, this highlights the importance of going beyond the traditional understanding of climate change. You need to be familiar with these newer and more nuanced concepts.
It's about understanding the connections between climate change, extreme weather events, and the impact they have on different sectors. And, of course, you need to be able to analyze the policy challenges they create.
It's all about developing a holistic understanding of these complex issues, which is essential for effective policymaking. Okay, before we wrap up this segment, we need to address a correction from our previous episode. We had mentioned that the Gatha-saptasati was one of the earliest known literary works in Marathi.
Oops, did we get that wrong?
Well, we were partially right. The Gatha-saptasati is definitely a significant ancient text, but it was originally written in Maharashtri Prakrit, which is a precursor to modern Marathi.
Ah, so it's a matter of linguistic precision.
Exactly, and accuracy is crucial, especially when it comes to the UPSC exam.
All right, so we've covered quite a bit in this segment, from home voting and the IMD's anniversary to micro-missiles and international collaborations. We even touched on some cultural events and some groundbreaking scientific developments. It's all connected, and it's all relevant for anyone who wants to stay informed and engaged with the world around them, especially those aspiring to be future policymakers and leaders. All right, let's wrap up this deep dive with a couple more important updates. First up, there's some news from the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. It seems this iconic wildlife sanctuary might be facing a bit of a threat.
Yeah, the proposed Parbati-Kalasan Chambal Eastern Rajasthan Canal project has raised some concerns. There's a possibility that parts of the reserve could be submerged by the project's reservoirs.
So it's another one of those situations where developmental needs clash with environmental concerns. A classic dilemma. How should UPSC aspirants approach this kind of situation?
It's all about analyzing the competing interests. You've got the need for water resources in a region that's already facing water stress, but then you have the importance of protecting biodiversity and endangered species like the tigers in Ranthambore.
It's a tough balancing act.
It is.
Yeah.
You need to understand the trade-offs involved in these big infrastructure projects and be able to analyze the potential environmental and social impacts. What are the legal frameworks for environmental protection? What role do impact assessments play? Are there any mitigation measures that can be taken? These are all important questions.
It's about going beyond the headlines and really digging into the complexities of sustainable development. It's a theme that comes up again and again in the UPSC syllabus. Okay, let's shift our focus to the digital realm.
Yeah.
India is ramping up its efforts to combat cybercrime with a new initiative called the Suspect Registry.
This is a great example of how technology can be used to enhance security, especially when it comes to financial fraud.
So how does it work?
It's basically a database of identified cybercriminals. It was developed by the I4C in collaboration with financial institutions. So whenever there's a suspicious transaction, the system can flag it and potentially prevent fraud from happening.
So it's like a digital watch list for cybercriminals.
Exactly. It helps authorities stay one step ahead. But of course, with any new technology, there are some important considerations.
Such as?
Well, data privacy and individual rights are always a concern. There's always a potential for misuse or overreach with these kinds of systems. So it's important to have safeguards in place to make sure it's used responsibly and ethically.
It's a reminder that even when we're using technology for good things, like fighting cybercrime, we need to be mindful of the potential downsides. We have to find that balance between security and civil liberties.
Absolutely. It's a crucial conversation to be having, especially in this digital age. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from clean energy and sustainable development to national security and international collaborations. We've even explored the world of turmeric and the latest in mining technology.
It's been quite a journey.
And remember, the key to success in the UPSC exam isn't just about memorizing facts and figures. It's about developing that deeper understanding, connecting the dots, thinking critically about the implications for policy and governance.
It's about seeing the big picture, but also paying attention to those crucial details. It's about asking the right questions and constantly seeking out new knowledge. And most importantly, it's about applying all of that to real-world situations, just like we've done in this deep dive.
So keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those UPSC dreams alive.
And that brings us to the end of our Current Affairs deep dive for January 16th, 2025. We've explored a wide range of topics and hopefully given you some food for thought. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of current affairs. We'll be back soon with even more insights and analysis. Until then, keep those minds sharp and stay curious.